to approve the minutes from November 12, 2018.
Seconded?
Me too, all unanimous. Let's move on. Who's here?
So we have to have an order change.
We do. Do we have to have an order change because of who's here?
Yes.
Okay. So who's first?
We need to make a motion to have the farmer's market structure moved up because Andrea Langhauser has a conservation commission meeting at 6:30 in another building.
Okay, so
That would be action item A.
I move that we go to action item A, farmer's market fee structure.
So,
Sorry. I don't know what you're here for, but I'm assuming it's not that.
this shouldn't take 5 minutes.
We should probably take,
Yeah. So, just to give a little history and a real brief overview, I prepared a little document for you guys to follow along with. But the farmers market vendors are viewed as retail food establishments, okay? They bring their stuff and they set up basically in usually a 10 by 10 footprint. A lot of times under a pop-up. We've all been to marketplaces, you know what it looks like. So when the farmers market first opened in Easton, there was one farmers market and it was 9 months out of the year. And the petition was made to the board that we're only open 9 months, we're trying to do this really good thing. And so since the annual fee for retail food for 10 feet of floor space was $100 back then, the board said, yeah, we'll charge $75 because it's 9 months out of the year, the math all
I
works.
have a question. Is that per vendor or for the whole, for the market?
Per vendor,
Okay.
okay?
Mhm.
So that was, I think, at least 2009. You were here for that,
Yep.
right? That was about 2009. Since then, now we have two entities hosting farmers markets, and both of them operate the full year, 12 months out of the year. One operates in the fixed location for 12 months out of the year, the other operates between two locations. So what we're proposing tonight is to reset the fee to the $100 fee that every other retail establishment that has 10 feet of floor space pays. The only difference would be, so everybody at Simpson Springs would pay $100 for their permit, it's good for the year. Everybody looking to be at the original Easton Farmers Market would pay $100 for their first permit. Then because we can't transfer the permit legally, they would have to apply for a second permit, check in with us, but we would reset that fee to $0. With all the work having been done up front, we know who they are, we know what they're bringing, we know their certifications are fine, but now we've got equity across the board. Everybody who's doing retail in town with 10 feet or less is paying $100 for the year. I also want you to know there are some vendors that previously needed licenses, but because of the changes in the food code are no longer going to need licenses. But I know we've had a problem, we've had a history of having gaps and not communicating well. We've met with Andrea, they have changed their application process, and we will be signing off on every vendor. We'll make the determination whether they're jurisdictional or not, and we will let them know if they're jurisdictional when they're ready to go, and the market manager will not let them in until they have that golden ticket.
So the people who do crafty things, and there are a lot of people who do crafty things at Simpson Springs, they don't fall under
Correct. These are food vendors that fall into a certain category.
What happens if somebody's only going onto the indoor market, so they're not paying up front $100, but then they want to
would
show
pay.
up they want to show up just for the indoor portion? So
They would pay the $100. It'd be
At that
$100 a calendar year.
Okay.
Typically, like right now, anybody coming in, if there were a change in ownership at Korea's Plaza or any place along there, their permit would be issued now and it would be good for the full year. So those that are coming to the winter market in early December are gonna get 13 months out of their permit if they go,
Oh, I gotcha.
but they'll be then in the computer to renew.
I gotcha.
So when they move back indoors next year, they'll get the renewal notice, they'll pay the $100, they have to reapply when they go back outside, so we know that they're there, we have a check-in and make sure their menu hasn't changed and kicked them into a different category, but we'll set the fee manually to $0 and issue another paper permit, $100 a year.
Okay, so,
The issue is the food code doesn't allow you to move addresses.
now I understand
Yeah,
that.
okay.
What's the rationale from going from $75 to $100?
Because all of them are operating a full, so we charge $100 for the gas station that sells food, milk all year long. These guys are getting a break at $75. But there's not equity. They're paying $75 at one location, they're paying 75 times 2 if they want to do.
Yeah,
This will
that I
just
get.
level
No,
the
that I
complete
get.
playing
That I
field.
get. That I get. That I understand. And have they pushed back, the vendors?
I think they will end up having more vendors that stick with the market, is part of what I think this will foster, is it won't be another outlay to see what the traffic patterns are like. It'll be, okay, I'm already paid for, I might as well. And we'll have a better assortment of vendors that actually, and have consistent vendors, which translates to less work for us because they're not constantly bringing in new vendors that we're chasing for certification, that we're chasing for outside licenses, labels. It's just a win-win for everybody.
Okay. Do you want to add anything?
No, I spent, I'm Andrea Langhauser, I'm your environmental planner. I've been working with the Ag Commission now for a year and a half. And we do have different vendors at different seasons, but we're trying to at least make things work at least more consistently for them and with more communication with the Board of Health. The only concern I would have is if we have a vendor starting in the summer, they're paying for, would it be a 12-month cycle?
Nope, it's gonna have to be December. They would start in the summer.
Okay,
Right now, they'd pay 75 to be
Right.
outside, and they'd pay 75 to go inside.
right,
So they are technically getting a break at the $100.
right, so that's, the Ag Commission runs the original Easton Farmers Market. Simpson Springs is a for-profit business. We only work on the dollars that we bring in, and we try to spend every dollar we bring in back into the service so that we don't take any town budget money. We never are allowed to take any town budget money. The nature of the business, from what I can tell, is that they tend to be startup businesses, and as they get more successful, they open their own stores somewhere because it's certainly easier, and they built their clientele up. So we will have new vendors all the time, but at least this creates more consistency. So if there's any pushback, we'll just absorb it, and I mean we will absorb the flack and leave it at that.
I really wasn't concerned about the flack. I just was concerned that I wouldn't want anyone to feel pushed out. It's very small, and I wouldn't want to see anybody.
I think a lot of them don't come for a second season because they're faced with paying another
Well,
$75.
and-
This will,
Some of them just, they have little plots. They don't have a second season.
and this is, you have to remember, this is not, we're not talking about we're not talking about fresh vegetables. We're not talking about honey, we're not talking about eggs, we're not talking about maple syrup.
That's it.
That's it, those are 4 exemptions. Now with the new food code, packaged, non-time temperature, they changed all the verbiage, non-time temperature controlled product no longer requires a permit across the state.
So a cookie
So-
doesn't require.
Cookies no longer have to they'll come to us, we'll make the determination, we'll tell them, nope, they don't. But also our gas stations, if they're selling soda and candy bars, they don't need a permit anymore. If they sell milk, which is time temperature controlled, if the vendors are selling cheese, if the vendors are selling sausage, those are the ones that will be paying. So there'll actually be a number of vendors that won't need to come in and get a
So the
permit
honey
at all.
guy's not going to need to pay.
Honey never had to pay, that's a state exemption.
So pretty much, unlike before, they're gonna send all the food to us, and in case that one pastry is cream filled, well, the cream filled one's a problem. Maybe we advise them, take that one off your menu for this year and then go forward, and then you won't need a permit.
So for most people, this will be less cost prohibitive, is what it sounds like.
I think we're gonna need to issue less permits, and I think it'll encourage people to come back and do the second season.
And how does it compare with other markets?
The Board of Health rules, or Board of Health rules,
No, that's not what I mean, the fees.
I don't know how the fees
I
compare.
don't know how.
Our vendor fees are very low. They're actually not paying, the market manager, hours that we need, but, we haven't done that comparison.
No, nor have we.
I do know just from word of mouth, that Easton is very conscientious, and I don't think anybody in the town at Easton is concerned with that.
I'm just asking a question. I just want to know.
I don't know. I actually noticed a temporary food permit. I was at the SOA Winter Market this weekend, and I noticed the temporary food permit sitting there on the table, but I didn't see how much it was.
Okay, do we have a motion? Any further discussion?
You know, I mean, I feel like I would make a motion to accept the farmer's market new fee structure, for the $100 for the year. I would make that motion.
I'm sorry.
I don't know if you feel the same, but
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm in agreement. Was that your motion? Do you want me to make the motion?
Someone needs to second it.
Seconded.
All in favor? Aye.
All right, run
All
to
right.
another meeting.
Off to Frothingham.
Run.
you're gonna make it.
Yeah, you don't even need to hurry.
Drive safely.
Okay.
Okay, who's up next?
Then we'll go back to the order of operations
So
here.
30.
Okay, 33 Pond Street. That must be you guys.
Hey, yeah, I'm John Kent.
You need to
Come
clap.
up and take
Come on
a
up.
seat.
I'm gonna give you this.
Now, I know you've been working with Tim. I'm Mark. So, are
And
you
I'm
the
Kristen.
seller or the buyer?
The seller and the buyer's
You guys
represented
are
here
buyers.
as well.
Okay. So everyone's being represented in the room. That's great to know. Okay, has everyone read?
I read it.
Their request?
I
Okay.
did.
Okay, so what the, this is for the people at home, I'll do a brief summation. In the town of Easton, if you have a Title V inspection that has what's called the lack of active stress, which we deem as, say you have an active stress level of 150 or 250 gallons a day, under your design criteria, say it's a 4-bedroom house, like in this case, it's a 4-bedroom home with 440 gallons a day capacity, okay? Anything that, when we see a drop in stress for more than 30 days, it triggers our policy. And what happened, what this policy was put in place for, is that when homes were changing hands and homes were being foreclosed on and put up for sale, people were buying these homes with no active stress, moving in, and 6 months later, they were breaking out all over the ground, and we were having problems with it in town, and then there was no money to fix them. So it became a public health issue. So this is a policy that's been in place since,
Before you got
yeah,
here.
before me.
So-
It was '05. It's been tweaked and written. So in the case that if someone moved in, we don't want someone to blast the system with 800 gallons a day on purpose and try to fail it. It's based on design flow. The system here, from what I've read, in the last couple of months, if you turn to your water records, and this is why it was flagged, it's 55 gallons for 1 meter reading, and then 32 gallons for the other meter reading. And the overall average is 163 gallons, which would be fine if that was the overall, if the 32 or the 55 was close to the 163. So that's why Tim Myers flagged the report, and that's why it didn't pass. There was a passing title. The system, just for record, is put in 2000, and it's 18 years old. Average life of the system is 20 to 40 years, depending on use and maintenance of the system. So and I brought the file, is a passing Title V from 2014. The water records from 2014 were approximately 120 gallons a day for those months, so that's why it didn't get flagged the last time. So they're here to request relief from a variance from our policy. So at that point in time, I give the microphone to you and explain your situation.
Yeah, so what has happened is, I actually just got back from deployment last week, so understanding it as you're saying it, but I had a tenant in place, and we had to go eviction. So as soon as I left, the tenant moved in, and they were finally evicted in September. And that, when they finally left, that's why the water dropped off. So it was actually a relatively short amount of time, 2 months. I know you said 30 days. I think it was 45 to 60 days. Well, you have the record, so I'm sure you can see it better than I can. But this is causing the sale to not go through. So the buyers are not able to get financing for the sale. I've already expressed an agreement to provide escrow in the case that the reinspection results in a failure or the system fails. I have no problem guaranteeing that, but the banks will not finance the property. So this is actually preventing the sale of the property.
We have see what happened in 2005, actually in 2008, the banks tightened up and they've become, to use Kristen's word, persnickety about lending money and doing things in escrow. So we have had problems with banks before. I had a bank that actually owned the property that did want to put the money in escrow. So it has become a problem, but our whole goal is to protect the public health. Not to deal with the banks, but it's one of those situations where we're looking at a situation, and you are aware of the whole situation as well. So, you want to add anything, Kristen?
No, I mean, it's a long-standing policy. The board has granted variances in the past. They're far and few between.
I think we got 1 for and 1 against on record.
Yeah, in 14 years. I happen to have been here. I know why it was there. Houses, people were moving to Florida or were lowering their flow to get the pass. Everything would go fine, and then it would fail, and actually the town got sued a couple of times. We weren't found, the installers an installer I know of in town on Center Street had to put in a whole new septic system.
So the
So it's-
time between a failure and that you could even get it fixed could put the public health at risk. Is that what I'm
Yes.
hearing? There's that chance that in that time frame, you identify the problem and then you can go in and get it fixed. The damage is already done.
Well, it would be overflowing or backing up into the home. The reason the banks don't want to loan the money without the clean pass is because then the house could not be habitable. It could now it's got a bill attached to it that is, it actually, a lot of this was going on back when the houses were, people were upside down. Like they bought the house and they were in it and they were upside down. So something like a $30,000 septic system would throw the balance completely off the other
So,
way.
I want to understand the timeline a little bit better. So the septic system was installed in 2000, yes?
Correct.
And it was inspected when the house was sold in 2014.
Yeah.
Correct.
Has it been inspected again?
Yes.
That's what you have in front of you, is it was just inspected, and as part of the inspection, they have to provide the water use records. And the water use is pretty consistent up until
Right,
this
October.
fall, and then it drops by 2/3.
with an explanation, with a reasonable
Yep.
explanation.
Yep,
Okay, so what are we charged with?
you're charged with deciding if that is a reasonable explanation and granting the waiver. It's a Board of Health regulation. We're charged with enforcing it. You are the only people that can give relief from it.
So the assumption is that in these 2 months, with the water being off, when it's turned back on, there will be damage to the
No.
property.
No,
No. What happens is when you take a Title V inspection, you look in the tank and you look in the distribution box, and it's a snapshot in time. If you cut the water usage back a lot, a failed septic will look like a past septic. See, that's the problem we've seen in the past. And, sometimes there's indicators like stain lines that are higher. Sometimes there isn't. And what we don't want is, it's buyer beware too. I mean, you gotta know what you're buying. The soils are good on Pond Street. I will say that. It's very sandy material. It's a one trench system, so that means it's sandy material, so.
Didn't I see somewhere that you could just recheck it in 2 to 3?
Well, that's part of our policy. And
We
that's
do that.
that's what they're trying to close.
Oh,
Okay.
The bank is saying, see, we say conditional, it's fine.
yeah.
99 out of 100, the bank goes along with holding the cost of a septic system in escrow till we hit that 2 to 3 month mark, do the reinspection, and then it goes one way or the other. It replaces the system or it goes back to the seller and everything is done. This particular bank is saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, their bank is saying, we don't want to be involved with holding money, we want a yes or a no. We're not going to give you the money unless it's a yes.
So if we were to approve it,
Mhm.
and then there was failure, where would the liability lie?
There is no, as far as I know.
It's a
that
snapshot in
held-
time.
It's a snapshot in time, and in the other case, it held that it was not us. We did everything we could do, and I'm comforted by the fact that you're here.
I mean, you,
Sorry, just briefly, but just from a perspective of what's going on, my children are buying the home, it's only 2 of them, in terms of what they, when the
I'm sorry, just for the minute, could you introduce yourself, please?
sorry, my name is John Balsovich, we'll be on the part of the owners of the property. My children will be moving in, this current tenant there, which has 2 people. When those tenants move out, and I believe it's the end of July, I believe their lease is up, it will only be occupied by 2 people, which is what the current occupancy of the home is. So from the risk perspective of the system, it will be probably seeing the current flow that it is right now of these
Okay.
times. So from a perspective of if it was, it's not, the system's not gonna be highly stressed. This is,
But it's a 4-bedroom home?
yeah,
it's a 2-family home.
it's designed for 4 bedrooms, 440 gallons a day. So, even at their higher usage, they made 1 month and it was July or August, so it's prime
Probably
water.
Filled a pool or
Filled a swimming pool, or
sprinkler.
ran a sprinkler. That's usually what those months are when you have a high number. So that was the only month.
Started
Their
a car
average
wash.
average is 165, 139, 166. That's about, a family of 4 usually does about 185 gallons a day. Now, if, as Kristen said, you can feel some comfort that the homeowners know what they're buying and getting into. Now, if there's something you want in writing saying that they know, that's up to you. I mean, that's something you might want to throw out there.
I think the minutes reflect.
That, they get that
Yeah,
point,
we've got
yes.
the minutes reflecting that they were here for this discussion.
Somebody want to make a motion? Are you ready to make a motion?
Any more questions? It's confusing, I mean,
No,
because the way it says, the way we have the policy written, it says once normal flow is redone, and if it's a two-sided property and one side's still vacant, to get that normal flow up, call it 100
Well,
gallons.
It's also the
3 to
first
6
time
months.
we've had something like this.
Yeah.
So
And I
we
feel
have
like
to process that ourselves.
I don't have any of their integrity. I'm just thinking if we're the Board of Health and there's a risk that there might be a problem, I'm just feeling
That's
a
why I
little
asked the
nervous. Although
question.
I think that you guys probably have all the integrity in the world. But what happens if in between that time?
If you,
There are a lot of pieces as well. So, I mean, if it were to fail, we would be ordering them to pump, we would be ordering them to take care of it and control the public health hazard.
and then upgrade within 2 years.
And, well, an upgrade in 2 years. Way back when, especially when the house people were upside down, now all of a sudden you had a $30,000 or a $20,000 bill and there was no way to pay for it. Part of why the Board of Health got involved with betterment loans. So if it were to fail, we would be here to help them finance it.
So there are safeguards in place.
Yeah, and that is, you just have to be current on your local bills. I mean, you guys know what we do with the betterment here, so. And if you look, this is the section here, if you read down here, this report is only described a conditional at the time of inspection, and this is the legal part of the front page that shows that it's like taking a Polaroid picture in time. So, that legally, that's what bonds it to Mr. Caponegro, who did the inspection.
Yeah, I'm okay with making a motion.
You good?
You're just supposed to.
Sorry. I make a motion to approve the variance for 33 Pond Street. Dated, does that,
As requested in the letter dated.
as requested in the letter dated
December 5th.
December 5th,
Yep.
2018.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, unanimous.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Good luck.
Good luck. Good luck.
Did you need a hand signed version of this? And just to clarify, I did write 11
I think
years.
we have it.
I know it was, and,
I think we have that, don't we?
I know it says 11 years, but as.
Yeah, they put a copy.
So I
That's-
apologize for that.
That's all right, as long as we have the documentation, which we
Thank
do.
you.
And as long as they understand the right thing to do.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
For your service.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And are you staying in town, or are you guys?
No, not too far.
Oh, we're about to know.
We're on Rockland Road, so right in the center.
Alright, so I have family on Noon Hill Farm, Noon Hill Road.
Near Medfield?
Yes. it's on
Okay,
that
I
side.
grew up in
Yep,
Medfield, so I know.
Yep, my brother-in-law's up that way.
Very nice. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Good luck.
Okay, so is our, the applicant for Body Art Apprentice here?
Morning, Millie. How you doing? You can pull up a seat next to Kristen.
This is my
Hello.
mother. Moral support.
You need moral support? We're not mean.
Okay, so I'm gonna use, you go by Millie,
Yep.
because I don't wanna crucify your first name on camera.
Milagros, but yeah, you can go by
Milagros,
Millie.
okay. She applied for a permanent makeup and a microblading license for body art at 285 Washington Street, Andre Robert Salon, which already has a license to do these procedures and stuff. So as in before, she's taken classes in lieu of anatomy and physiology. She's requesting that these classes be used in place of it, so that would be a variance to the board. As with all the other practitioners, I have reviewed the class curriculum. And I can never
Say that
spit,
twice.
never spit that word out without slurring. And I believe it is comprehensive, and it does show that the class she has taken is comprehensive, what she's gonna do. So and also part of our body art regs is that the board gets to meet everyone they license. So I'd make a recommendation that, you know, you can ask her any questions you'd like and go from there. And Kit, do you still have her documentation or her books, or do we give?
Yeah,
got 'em
I
back?
have them in the car, yeah.
All right, great,
No,
okay.
we're okay. We're okay.
So there was a passing grade in this course?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how many hours?
I don't remember how many hours, but I know she made us work on 25, how did I say, clients before I had to like graduate, so those are hours, I don't know, clinic hours.
Okay.
I make a motion to approve the variance requesting acceptance of an alternative course, the permanent makeup manual, the adult microblading manual. Do you want me to read the whole thing?
Only if you have to.
Do I have to?
No, I don't think so.
All right, I make a motion to approve the variance.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous?
Thank you.
There you go.
Thank you. Thank you, I'm excited.
I will, I'll issue the license probably tonight or tomorrow morning.
Okay.
And then, I just have to look at it, because sometimes the way it's filled out, I wanna make sure the license is 285 Washington.
Yep.
It's, in the way you filled it out, it might say your Brockton address.
Oh, my home
Yeah,
address.
so it might be, I might have to go back into the computer and just correct that.
Okay, and my other question is, do you need me to show you my TB test before anything?
No, we don't usually require
Okay.
the TB test. It's just that you've done your bloodborne pathogen, your CPR.
Yeah.
You actually had a TB test done?
Yeah, because
didn't know they asked that.
my school, they told us, like, before you go for
Nice.
your license, just in case, you have to have your TB test, just
You
to
had
make
it read
sure.
by somebody?
Actually down the street, the clinic.
And
right
so
there.
it was
Yeah,
negative?
so, yeah. So, like,
Wanna
that's
read
all
mine?
clear, so I wanted
Read
to
it.
make sure, like, if I had to bring that in, cause, you know, for the
Good.
records.
That's
and
great.
stuff.
That's great.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
I don't wanna have private information on the,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
on
Yeah.
it, just cause of HIPAA things, you
Yeah.
know, so.
Great.
Thank
we've
you,
never
though.
required that before, so maybe something we'll look into.
It's good that
Yeah.
they do, so.
Yeah.
It's good.
So
That's
that's
good for
why
everybody.
I wanted to make sure like that because I came straight from work, so I was like, I don't know if I have to bring it today or what. So it was good that I had to ask. So
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
thank you, appreciate it. Nice meeting you guys.
Nice meeting you too. All that worry for nothing.
Well,
She was making her brain
You
since
never
last
know.
night.
Aw.
She didn't know what to expect.
Yeah, because for massage and aesthetics, like you have to like show and like they do everything different, so it's like kind of like nerve wracking. So.
Oh, yeah.
So that's why I'm like, wait, do I have to? But thank you.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome. You're welcome.
Nice meeting you.
Thank
You
you.
too.
Happy New Year's too.
It's nice to see somebody so excited.
Yeah.
I know.
All right. Shall we move back to our agenda? I bet you don't have a word to say about ticks and mosquitoes. Those little
wrong. I
those little babies better be dead.
The board needs to approve the actual license,
do. Yes,
because that was just the variance that you guys approved.
the variance, and you have to approve her license.
Will we see the license, or is that part of now?
It's
Right
in
now,
the
you just
back
make a
of
motion
the
to
To make a
applications in the
to
back.
grant her a license.
I make
Okay.
a motion to accept the application for Body Art Apprentice for Milagros Melendez.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous.
I don't see that on here.
It's B. You had a variance for her
Oh, I
and
see,
then
right,
item
okay.
B.
All right.
So
Back to the bugs.
I called and confirmed today we've had an official hard frost. So we can take this off the agenda till next April.
Yeah, you think Thanksgiving qualified as a hard frost?
Yes. But I wanted to hear it from Bristol County Mosquitoes' mouth, you
Yeah,
know
but
what I
what's
mean?
with the mosquitoes? I had a bunch of mosquitoes last week at my door.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah, it was like
you
really warm.
never had a weird February night that's 60 degrees and you're like, they survive
wake up.
somehow. Survive, so,
And
All
we
right.
don't have any betterment applications.
no.
Do you have any inspection reports to share with us?
Let's see, what do we have new that's out there? We've had some complaints. We had a complaint for property on Turnpike Street that cares for people with brain injuries. I went there today and the place was spotless. So the complaint was that it was dirty, there's filth on the floor and everything else. And I went and inspected it today with the manager and he let me in and that was spotless. But
Yeah.
gotta go.
Yep.
We've had, what else was there?
We had a release at the trailer park.
Yeah, that's.
What's
going
the
in.
big deal there? What's happening?
They had an overflow event.
The frac tanks overflowed, so that was released at the trailer park. They are doing some paving at the trailer park, some spot paving, which is, you really should fix the infrastructure before you pave it, but I think they're just, I don't know what they're thinking, but I was told by the manager there that they're doing some paving and resurfacing of the roads in the mobile home park.
Maybe just so people could drive.
Without four-wheel drive?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe. So, we're a little slower on perk tests. We're averaging 1 or 2 a week instead of 3, which is fine. The time of year we're doing permitting right now, Tim and I, and that's about it. Every day wrapping up the restaurant and inspections are pretty much almost done with that. I have 2 I have to go back to, and I should be done with my list. So that's about it. What do you got? Usually remember something, I forget.
There's been a lot of training,
Oh yeah, that's true.
a lot of training opportunities that have been going on. The Mass Health Officers was down the Cape in November. Mark and Tim were both there for 2 days. I was there for a day. You have a training coming up this week
This Thursday, yeah.
as well that they'll both be at. And then the other thing, I had sent you the invitation for the ARP event, kickoff event, so that will be a big thing that's coming. We'll be putting a lot of effort into that over the next 2 years as far as surveys and
That's on the
listening
20th?
sessions.
Which day is that?
That was Friday.
That was Friday. I
That was
did forget
Friday.
it.
There is also an event this Thursday. So Friday was pretty much was the presentation of our certificate from AARP. It was the theme was your elected officials are committed to you and committed to the town. We'll move to an event this coming Thursday that will be our first opportunity to engage the stakeholders in the community, the businesses and the support mechanisms that also belong at the table. So we're hosting a coffee hour,
What time?
9 to 10 on Thursday at Frothingham Hall. And that will be for any stakeholder who wants a seat at the table as we kind of go through the process. The thought was to invite them in, explain what the process is and explain what we're trying to accomplish, in hopes that when we do move into the spring and we do move into the surveys and the listening sessions, they as entities have been able to identify who in their organization best belongs at the table, rather than starting off with a 3-hour listening session and finding out they sent, the CEO and it really should have been the boots on the ground person. So, but we had a nice turnout. We had Representative Cronin was there, Senator Brady was there, Dottie Fulgenetti was there. We had the Mass President of AARP. We had a representative from the District Attorney's Office. We moved into a lunch that was attended by over 50 people, and then it segued into a Veterans Appreciation Games Day. And I want to say that probably had at least 100 people through the building in that time block between the 3 events. So it was a nice day.
Well, you were talking, I remembered that I went to that climate
Yes, you did.
meeting for 2 Fridays. It was a climate seminar about the change in the global warming and climate and what's the town's plan going to happen for this, and what do we prioritize as a town. And this plan will be revisited annually. Andrea Langhauser has been in charge of it. She was here earlier in the meeting as the environmental officer for the town. Kristen was invited and sent me because she thought I'd think it was interesting, and it was. We had people from Water Department, DPW, Conservation Commission was there, and there was a couple other departments there, and one person from the Board of Selectmen. And what we did is we sat down for 4 hours and wrote down everything we thought was an issue: infrastructure, environmental, and social. And then the next day we went back the following Friday and said, what do we need to do to help rectify these things, and then prioritize them. Came out of the meeting is that stormwater is going to be probably our #1 issue because Easton has a high water table. And one of the social issues that came out is that 305 Turnpike Street socially is going to be one of the most prioritized issues for the town. So those are the 2 main categories that came out of the meeting. Of that entire 8 hours. So it was pretty interesting, and it was nice to be involved, so.
So are you waiting for Board of Health?
No, I'm waiting for another meeting. I'm just kind of listening.
It's 305 Turnpike, where is that?
That's the mobile home park. Yeah. So,
Is that plan still to evacuate that whole location?
I don't know what's going on as far as that is. I know that Pam, how do you say her last name? It begins with the W. She lives in the park, and she's on the housing authority. She was in my group, and they said that they haven't heard back from the judge about receivership and what was going to happen with the park. So
They had days and days of testimony, and then it's in the judge's hand right now as to what the next step, whether or not they'll be appointed a receiver or what will be happening next. So they're all just kind of waiting still.
It's gonna be frustrating.
Yep.
Yes. All right, ladies. Someone needs to make a motion.
Want me to?
Yeah.
Don't you usually do?
No, you do.
I make a motion to adjourn the meeting at 6:40, December 10th.
All in favor?
Aye.
So the meeting of December 10th is over. Thank you.
All right. You got a cold?
Yeah.
You sound like you have a
I'm on
cold.
I'm on steroids.
You're on steroids.
Yes, prednisone. I usually feel like Superwoman. I feel like Cruella.